Hey everyone, welcome. Today we're going to take a look at a CPQ drawdown integration between Salesforce CPQ and LogiSense. We'll take a look inside Salesforce and how you would configure a quote and turn it into an order with consumption schedules, and how LogiSense will take a prepaid drawdown, mediate and rate all the usage, and show and share that information back and forth between the two systems. We'll go in first and take a look at how we would configure the order and pricing inside Salesforce, and then we'll move along into seeing how everything works with inside LogiSense. Let's take a look.
So today we are going to walk through an example of creating a quote in Salesforce Revenue Cloud, a quote that will contain two components from to a customer. The first component will be a prepaid amount of funds that will be collected upfront. And the second component of that quote will represent consumption-based product, in this case 3, to which we will be tracking how much usage comes in from an external system and the amount of usage that gets consumed from that external system. We will bill and draw down against those prepaid funds. So you could see within the quote right here, I have my quote start date, which is June 1st, 2022. This is going to represent an entire year commitment, so a subscription term of 12 months. The prepaid amount of funds, this could be certainly variable, but I've just made this $1,000 for the purpose of this example. And in this case, we're going to collect this $1,000 upfront as a one-time payment. This could certainly be a recurring payment or an ad hoc payment as well if you chose. And the 3 consumption products are going to be what we call data, authentication, and voice. Each of these consumption products contain what we call a consumption schedule in Revenue Cloud, which will contain the rates. Each of these consumption products will be billed for as usage in arrears. And to take a look at an example of what a consumption schedule looks like, in this case for data, for every piece of data that comes in, we are going to bill at $1.25, in this case per unit. On the authentication side, there is a similar consumption schedule for that. And that represents, in this case, a charge of 2 cents per unit request on the authentication side. And similar to the voice side, for every unit charge on the voice side, we are going to charge $1.50 per unit. So these are the rates, in this case, that are getting quoted to the particular customer per this agreement. And as normally part of the quoting process, the team that's putting the quote together, typically the account team or the sales operations team, is going to put together this quote. There'll be some sort of negotiation process and back and forth that goes back and forth between the customer around payment terms, what particular products, rates, and things like that. Again, once all that gets set up, right, and the agreement gets finalized, typically red lines will be done at a contract level. But once that agreement is done, this quote will represent a contracted agreement with the customer, and that contracted agreement will represent that this customer is going to pay us an amount of money up front. And then over time, as they're consuming usage against that prepaid funds bucket, we will draw down against that and in real time capture the amount that's left within that prepaid funds. Once we have this quote in the system, we'll just walk through and we'll just save this. And again, upon finalization of a quote here on the system, once all the proper legal and contractual work is done to turn this quote actually into an official order, we will then go ahead and, in this case right here, all the appropriate deal desk information is here on the quote too as well. So the sales team and the deal desk team can immediately see the metrics around total contract value, annual recurring, anything that's non-recurring, ACV, etc. Once this agreement is then finalized with the customer, right, they'll typically be either the deal desk or operations team will then take what's been quoted here in the system. And then once it's been finalized and we have signature from the customer, this quote then will typically become an order. So we're going to, just for demonstration purposes, we're going to flip this into an order right here in real time. And we'll see everything from this quote, from the quote header and the quote line items, then turn into an order, which in a similar fashion has an order header as well as order line items. The order header essentially brings over a lot of the relevant information from the quote header, and the relevant information it needs is pretty much all the information that is needed to essentially bill and set up the appropriate financial contracts so we know what the financial obligations are and the financial agreements are with the customer. Within an order, you can see at the order header level, we can capture things like PO number. We have the total amount here in the system, any estimated tax that's been estimated. This order right now is in draft format. We haven't activated it yet. So again, if there's changes to be made, we can change those things. And the things that would affect things like tax or things like the shipping and billing address change. The order start date is here. Remember, this is a 12-month contract. The billing date of the month, in this case, just defaults within my system to the initial date or the day of the month that the quote was began. This can be changed anytime as well. We also have payment terms here on the system that are captured here as well. All the billing metrics are captured here at an order header level, as well as, again, the shipping and billing address, again, all contained at the order header level. At each of the individual product levels, so there's an order product, and typically these order products represent a one-to-one relationship with what's come over from the quote line. And as you see, the prepaid funds order product mirrors pretty much what we have here at the quote line, in that this is a one-time charge. And again, all this information here within the order product level, a lot of this is inherited from the order header level, but you could certainly override it as well. But the specific details about this particular order product, in this case prepaid funds, are captured here in terms of the unit price of anything that's been billed to date, anything that's been canceled, how much more has to be billed, tax information, etc. So all that information that billing will need within Revenue Cloud is here at the order product level. So we know all the instructions and everything from a billing perspective that needs to happen. And similar to the other order product levels as well. So we'll take a look at one of the consumption products here. The consumption products are pretty similar in this case. So a consumption product, just like we saw before, same type of things. In this case, it's going to be billed for in arrears, right, on a monthly basis as well. And the other thing that's important too is each consumption product, usage product, has what's called a usage summary associated with it. So as data is coming in, pre-rated from an external system, that data will come in and will get associated to the appropriate usage consumption bucket. And as though that external data is coming here into Revenue Cloud, right, it can be pre-rated, so that rating and that mediation could happen elsewhere in the system. Once it's brought into Revenue Cloud, we will associate it to the appropriate usage summary bucket. And from there, at billing time, we will generate the proper billing and invoicing data needed that will read off that usage data that comes in, that gets populated from that external system.
Hey everyone, so now that you've learned how to go create an order and quote inside Salesforce CPQ with consumption schedules and a prepaid drawdown amount, let's go take a look at what LogiSense does with that information, how our integration works, and how we process usage.
A simple demo implementation that we have with Salesforce, their billing platform, in CPQ that shows an order in Salesforce CPQ being taken that has usage consumption elements and a prepaid drawdown. We're going to show how this prepaid drawdown is accepted from the order by LogiSense, how LogiSense decomposes that order to be able to understand how to rate all the usage and process the usage, how we update information inside Salesforce so that sales agents and team members can see data in real time, and how we process the usage back at billing time or being ready for billing time so that Salesforce Billing can then take the usage records that have been pre-rated and mediated by LogiSense and invoice a customer. So let's start out here in the SmartBite system. We have a company called LogiSense Corporation, and I'm going to highlight a couple key elements here for you. First, we've added a couple fields for a usage prepaid initial amount and a usage prepaid balance. This will be our drawdown example that an account has in this system, and we will be using the order that is already pre-populated to show you this flow. If we start here, you will see these updated values get changed as we go through the integration and we go through the demo. Let's take a look at the order, show you what is a little bit unique here as we set up. And what we'll see here is we have order information. We'll see there's an order amount of $1,000. That's going to be our prepaid drawdown. And we'll see the details when we look at the order products. And we'll also see a little attribute here called sync to LogiSense. That's going to tell us that this order has been received by LogiSense and processed and is ready to accept usage through our mediation engine. Let's take a look at the order products. As we look at the order products in the system, we're going to go ahead and see that we have 4 different order products. And one of them has the $1,000. It's a one-time product. That is our prepaid funds. That's going to be what we're allowing as a drawdown. The other elements that are recurring are all usage elements. There's no dollar amount here, but if we were to dive into one of them, like the authentication consumption element, we will see that there is a consumption schedule on these. And that consumption schedule contains the rates that LogiSense will decompose into its platform for its rating engine to be able to use. So we can kind of look through here, see what the actual rates are. And we'll see here that we have a 2 cent per authentication rate. The other ones are all set up as well. So we'll go back to the account for a second, because that's where we will pick up from the next part. Now, when this order is set to activate and is ready to process, like in the state that it's in, the trigger will happen that tells LogiSense to go ahead and process all the orders. So for this demo, I've triggered this process at this point in time, and it just takes about a minute or so for this to occur. So as this process runs through the system, we will go ahead and take a look at what happens on this account, and I'll refresh it as soon as this is done. And we're going to look for a couple different things here. We're going to go to the order, and we're going to make sure that the order has synced to LogiSense. So we can see that that sync checkbox is enabled. That's great. We can also now go into LogiSense, and we can go ahead and look at what we can go back to the account, and we can go ahead and look at what that initial prepaid balance is. And we'll need to make sure that gets set. And then we can also go ahead and take a look in LogiSense and make sure that we have all the rates. So let's switch over to the LogiSense section for a second. And on the LogiSense side, we'll see that we have the LogiSense Corporation account here, and we bring over the prepaid usage element along with whatever the consumption rates are. And we can take a look at these rates through a couple different mechanisms here on the account, but I'm going to do that using this object here that shows what all the prepaid rates are. So we can see them all in one. We can see what our consumption units, there's our authentication at 2 cents. Then we have data consumption at 1.25 and voice at 1.5. So whatever you set the consumption rates to be and that schedule to be on the object in the order in Salesforce, we will bring all of those down and map them to the appropriate type of usage rates for the rating engine of LogiSense. We'll go back in here now to the account. We're going to simulate some usage processing, and we're going to create some usage updates so that we can see these prepaid amounts change and the balance change as we go throughout the system. And so let's go ahead and trigger those now. These would normally come in through our normal data collection process. And I have an interval here that happens on this trigger every few minutes so that we can simulate this in one demo run. So let's take a look and see if this account has updated yet. Go back to LogiSense Corp. We will now see that we have a balance of 567.78. And now let's go ahead and let's process some usage. So we can go back to our order and we'll simulate a bill run, and we can see usage summary records be created. So I'm going to go ahead and trigger that next process. Again, that would be something that would be triggered on a recurring basis based on the bill run, what day of the month this account is being billed on, or any other manual triggers. So as we go through that process here, we'll now dive into the order usage summaries. And we'll see usage summaries now are entered in and queued for invoice. Now, we've offered a prepaid balance on this account that's been chewed down. In this last run, I sent through a flood of information so we could get lots of overage, so we could actually see some usage summaries being created for these. And those usage summaries are now there. Usage records will be created below them so that we have the detail for each one based on the period that we are actually in. So this demo has been set up for March. Ongoing, we'll have these demos based on the current calendar month. So the data looks real and live. So that's a quick little summary of kind of how this process works. Happy to share more details with you.
Okay, so now we've taken a look at how we can create an order inside Salesforce CPQ with consumption and prepaid drawdown elements. We've taken a look at how LogiSense can handle that information through our integration, process usage through our mediation and rating engine, and take a complex scenario like usage-based consumption drawdown elements with no matter what kind of usage you want to provide us, and effectively give you insights into what's going on your customer account directly in Salesforce and produce accurate results for complex scenarios. So thanks for joining, and we look forward to seeing you in our next video.